Hey MVPs, everybody else watching on YouTube, Patreon, RicoKnows here. Going to talk to you guys about the UFC Fight Night card we have this weekend. It is at the Apex. There will be no crowd. It is Crazy Eyes against Amanda Lemos. If you don't know who Crazy Eyes is, it's this girl right here, Jandiroba. She's a great wrestler, by the way. She's got those eyes going. But before we get to the main event and the main card, we're going to start off with the early prelim fight. You see it here. Mohammed Usman, the older brother, bigger brother of Kamaru Usman, the former world champ, and then a guy named Thomas Petersen. Shout out to Petersen. But before I get into this, obviously we make the first pick every single night for free. So here it is. It's free. Just so you guys are aware, we have been doing a phenomenal job on UFC. Last week on the card, we picked Rose Namajunas to beat Tracy Cortez. It was a lock. That is why it's in white text. It was a lock, and I said take Rose by points. It feels really good to get the number one parlay right, get both your locks correct, get that correct, get a couple of underdogs right. We went and did that, but we did miss here and there on some of the parlays and props. Some MVPs are better than others. You might have hit on some of your parlays and props. Nonetheless, on the season, we are 83.33%. I am 83.33% on locks. You can be better if you avoid the locks that miss. Leans, I'm sitting at 59%, and then value bets 40%. Props and parlays on the entire season. Anything I put over here on the far right, anything I put on the bottom here, it's at 54%. But remember, we don't expect these ones down here to hit all the time. We expect these ones to hit. If you see white text, you should have been all over it. Those are the bets that I know are going to hit. They're in order by confidence. So the one at the very top is not missing. That's the way we get down. These will always hit, and as you move down the chart, they will start to miss. But the ones at the very top always hit. That is what we do. That's what we've been doing. By the way, locks in the last 42 predictions, something like that. I am 42-3. No, 39-3. So 42. 39-3 on my last locks. If I told you it's a lock and it was with white text, you got it right. You bet and you won. Shout out to the MVP. So here we are. We're on this card, and we have to start identifying fights. So for the first fight of the night, let's talk about it. I have talked about both these gentlemen on previous cards. If you ever want to go to the Patreon and do a search for these names, just type in the search bar Usman or Petersen. You will find the previous videos I made on these gentlemen. They fought before earlier this year in 2024, both of them. So if you remember Usman, he did fight Parkin last. One of the things we did here is we took Parkin in this fight. I just rewatched the video. I told you take Parkin. It's a lock. And it's going to go the distance. My God, I didn't even add that to the record on the prop list because I didn't write it on the card, but I did say it. I said it was going to go the distance. I felt that there was no knockout or finish potential between either fighter, and this is heavyweights, which is pretty remarkable because when you see heavyweights, typically the over-under is 1.5 rounds, and if I tell you it's going to go the distance, we're going well above the 2.5, and now you're getting your money's worth. But it is a sweat the whole time. But look at this guy. He always goes the distance. Now, here's the thing. That fight against Parkin, I don't think he lost it. I thought he actually won the fight, and we were on the benefit of really bad judging. That's awesome because Parkin was not doing anything to impress me. He actually really disappointed me. We thought that guy could go out there and dominate the fight. He didn't dominate it. He barely won, and I was not impressed with anything I saw from Parkin. And from this day forward, Parkin's on my list of do not believe the Vegas odds. I understand when you're a wrestler, they give you great Vegas odds. And speaking of a wrestler, Thomas Petersen was labeled a wrestler, so he got these incredible odds against Pogues. And we had Petersen as a lock as well one night, early on, in the Dolidze versus Imavov card, where I went 11-2 that night on my picks. 11-2. One of the misses was the very first fight of the night. Jamal Pogues dominated Thomas Petersen. Petersen looked like a zombie. He had his arms out in front of him, and he was just trying to grab punches. Listen to me, guys. When you get wrestlers, let's talk about it. If you're a high school wrestler or a wrestler and is your foundational skill set, or your practitioner, if you will, if that's your foundation, when people are wrestlers, they reach out and try to get wrist control. It's a part of, shooting for your takedown. You want to pull them towards you, get wrist control. Thomas Petersen is in an MMA fight trying to get wrist control while standing. In projectile range, like in striking range, In striking range, he's trying to get wrist control. It's laughable. And if you go watch the fight, his corner's telling him, like, what the hell are you doing, bro? Stop that. This ain't happening. And you can't do that against Mohammed Usman. Now, before I go and talk to you guys about how I feel about this fight, like, I just want to tell you that I see one guy's an athlete and one guy isn't a real heavyweight. Like, I understand he's 261 pounds, 6'1", 261. Thomas Petersen, he's one of the few UFC heavyweights that I watch in the cage and I just say to myself, oh, I could beat him up. Like, I'm as big as Thomas Petersen. I'm stronger than Thomas Petersen. I could beat him up. I've been fighting my whole life. I think I could beat up Thomas Petersen. I don't know what he's doing in the UFC. I don't know how he got there. I don't believe in him like that. I really don't. I just watch him and I'm just like, hey, it's probably my toxic trait, right? I'm just sitting here going, yeah, this guy, I don't know who he beat. Nah, he don't move me like that. Nah, I would shoulder check him in the store, in the supermarket. I would shoulder check him. This guy's, he's not a real heavyweight. This dude walking around, he's a middleweight. He's a lightweight. He's a chump, man. And then Usman, I've never seen a man this big weigh 240, bro. He weighed 230. You ever see those really big muscular guys who just get knocked over? I see it all the time. Like, they've been lifting weights. It's almost steroid-driven weightlifting. They've been lifting weights and they skip leg day, and they're just this huge muscular dude, and you're like, man, why's that guy got no balance? Why does he keep falling over? They'll bounce like 3 times on their tippy toes if you bump into them. I'm being serious. You see it all the time. You see it, and you just be like, what was that? That's how I feel about these dudes. Like, these guys would be on that show 300 on Netflix, and they would be eliminated immediately. They're just terrible. So, listen to what I'm saying about these guys. They just don't impress me, neither one of them. I want to say something about this whole card. When you watch the UFC, you learn that the prelims can be somewhat volatile. The somewhat volatile prelims in the sense that you might think you know who's going to win, and then you get it wrong because there's 2 humans in a cage. And remember, this is a small cage. This is a small cage. So there's not going to be, at the apex, it's a smaller octagon, by the way. I'm just saying. So there's not going to be that much space in between these guys. They're going to have to scrap, theoretically. That really is advantageous for wrestlers because they can get takedowns. There's going to be clinches up against the fence. It's going to be boring. But I bring up the whole prelim thing because this entire fight card, is prelim worthy. Like, every single fight is just a bunch of bums who are on the prelims. I don't mean to call professional fighters bums. Don't you ever get that wrong. I truly believe in some of these guys and what they're doing because they train for a living and they're fighting for a living. But if we're keeping it relative to other UFC fight cards, this is all prelim fights. This would be prelim fight. Like, none of these fights would have made UFC 300. They would all have been on the prelim at 303. Like, this is not moving me like that. So the volatility of prelim fights is going to be real throughout the entire card. The smaller octagon is going to be real. And more importantly, heavyweights. Heavyweights always have a potential to end early. Always have a potential to be wrong. Just because somebody has 1-punch knockout power, it's 2 grown-ass men, and they're huge. It's not 115. It's not 125. It's not 135. It is 265, theoretically. So it's dangerous. So if you wanted a strategy on how to gamble, I would recommend, if you're out there and you're not sure who's going to win, stay away from early prelim fights, stay away from heavyweights, stay away from the apex, stay away from lesser known fighters so you have more of a track record or more data to do analysis on. And here we don't have that. So all of those factors, and I'm here to tell you who the winner is here. So for me, I like Usman. I think Usman's just a better athlete. I think Usman isn't gonna have a hard time stopping the takedown. I watched Petersen not get any takedowns in his last fight against Pokes, and he's supposed to be a wrestler. He's supposed to be that takedown guy. You see the percentage here. He averages 2.84 takedowns as a heavyweight. What are we doing? If you get a takedown, you should be able to hold your opponent down. If you can't keep him down, then you get another takedown, right? And that's why you see these numbers. These numbers are indicative of somebody who can't hold opponents down. That's what they are. When you see 2.84, that means, oh, he got a takedown, but he did nothing with it. Because if I get a takedown as a heavyweight, you should never get up again, and I should be dominating this fight, win the fight, ground and pound. It should be over. And that's not happening with Petersen. He's not that guy. He's not that dominant. And I don't like Usman all that much. But at least in the fight against Parkin, a much bigger man, a much bigger, stronger man, Usman held his own. He impressed me. Petersen has not impressed me in a while. Like, he's not impressed me in a while. The greatest thing that I think Petersen's ever done in his life is win 3 rounds with Cortez Acosta. That he made it 3 rounds. I don't care about these knockouts on the regional scene. These don't move me like that, okay? The sub is there. People can talk about all this all you want. I'm just telling you, Usman is here. Now, I would probably take the over on this. I don't know what it is. The sportsbook currently hasn't opened the more wages. But it's near a money line pick, if you will. It is a money line pick. It's near a coin flip is what I meant to say. And it's a lean. So remember, my leans, I get them right 59% of the time. So I'm taking Mohammed Usman in a lean over Thomas Petersen. But just remember the volatility behind this. Remember that nobody's really, it's a heavyweight fight. It's the early prelim. Don't parlay this with everything you have on the whole night and ruin your night. I don't think you should do that. I think this is a standalone bet. If anything, whatever number of units you're doing is your business. How you guys bet is your business. Shout out to the MVPs. But from my perspective, there's some things you need to take into account. The last time I saw these two gentlemen in the octagon, I was more impressed with Usman and what he did against Parkin, who's a huge undefeated fighter from England. And then Thomas Petersen looked terrible against Pokes, who's not a good fighter. And Thomas Petersen looked like he doesn't belong in the UFC. Usman still looks like he belongs there. Maybe it's nepotism. Maybe he's only famous because of his brother. If he didn't have the last name Usman, you probably wouldn't even know this guy or remember his fighting acumen on any level, yet here we are talking about him. So I'm cool with it. I think Usman's actually a little better than some of the other people on this card, by the way. Maybe not. Maybe this is where he belongs. But for the most part, I'm going to start the night with Mohammed Usman getting the win, and I like the over rounds. Maybe even going the distance. So I'll add that in the chart here. And I hate just blindly guessing at those things. I really do. But in this particular case, let me go over rounds. We'll find out what the over rounds are, and maybe you guys should bet them. Good luck, y'all. And remember, if you want to get the rest of the picks and the breakdowns from all the other fighters, please go to Patreon. Some of the videos are free. They are. But the vast majority of them, you need to be an MVP. Your friends don't know. But Rico knows. Good luck, y'all. We're dominating.